Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Huerta, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Sylvia Campos.
Here.
Eric Cantu.
Here.
Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Kaylin Paxson, she's going to be a little bit late, but she will be here. Everett Roy.
Here.
Mark Scott.
Here.
Carolyn Vaughn.
Here.
City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
City Attorney Miles Risley. Mayor and Council, a quorum of the council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. So this morning, we are going to have a briefing. It's water workshop. We're going to go from now, 10:04, straight through to 2 p.m. We're going to hold our questions. We're going to hear the presentation through. So I ask council members to write down your questions. Then we'll go back. If typically what we normally do is we have every council member gets, 2 different opportunities, up to 5 minutes to ask questions. If someone needs a third opportunity, I will allow that, being this is a very important subject. So today's presentation and discussion, this is the item, regarding the City Council approved drought contingency plan to include policies that address water supply, water availability, demand conditions, and drought stages. Topics for the discussion are going to include an update on water supply demand scenarios, recommendation on baseline water use by customer classification, including multifamily, recommendation on curtailment percentages, recommended allocation by customer class, fee adjustments or drought surcharges, review enforcement provisions, car washing, flushing motorboat engines, watering vegetable gardens, potted plants, and other landscape, analysis of residential account growth, city swimming pools and splash pad for summer operations, and community and stakeholder engagement. So we have quite a bit to cover today. And like I said, we're going to go through the entire presentation, and then the council will go into question and answer. Did you have anything, Mr. Zanoni?
Just one other thing, Mayor, that's a good overview. So some of the material today are policy issues that need council voting or consideration of a vote. So some of these items, and Nick will identify them as we go through the presentation, will be on the City Council meeting for the 28th for next Tuesday. And so there was a placeholder put on the agenda yesterday that went out, but by tomorrow we'll have briefing memos and more material for the council to review. So some of the things like the curtailment percentages and reaffirmation of surcharges, those items and a few others will be on the council agenda, the business meeting next Tuesday for action.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Nick, go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Nick Winkleman, Chief Operating Officer, Corpus Christi Water. Before we start this presentation, I do want to thank the city staff, including many departments, not just CCW, who has worked very hard and worked over many weekends to put this information together, and will continue to do so as we work through these issues and this drought of record. And additionally, I also want to thank the CCW staff, which continues to work day and night to ensure our water supply is safe, secure, and resilient. Some third people that I do want to, the other part of the team is our professional consultants. And I want to thank, some of them are here today, Carollo Engineering, Mr. Jeff Stovall, PhD and PE is here today. He's helped us, and him and Michael Pinkney from Carollo continues to help us with the updates to the dashboard. They've helped us with data analysis as we work through the various customer classes, so we're very thankful and appreciative of them as well. Today, as the mayor introduced, we will talk about an update to the water supply dashboard and the demand, our recommendations on baseline, curtailment, and allocations, and I will define each of those 3 terms, as they are all very important. We will discuss drought surcharges, enforcement provisions, and of course, our community engagement approach. If we could, let's first talk about our updated dashboard. If you recall, the last time we talked about the dashboard, we provided a number of different scenarios to help us identify when the projected date of the level 1 water emergency would occur. The ranges of the time frame, they ranged from as early as May to the most optimistic case was never hitting the date of level 1 water emergency. We've worked with Carollo, with staff, to put together and update this dashboard, and we're excited to show it to you today. A couple of things that I do want to reemphasize. The level 1 water emergency date is when we are projected to be 180 days or 6 months away from not having enough supply to meet our demand. Doesn't mean we don't have water. It means we are 180 days where the current supply doesn't satisfy the demand of all of our customers. So when we look at the updated dashboard, and it's on the next slide, there are certain assumptions and parameters, so I do want to go through those. So the updated dashboard assumes no inflow from rain events in our western reservoirs. We know that has changed, and I'll give you some updated percentages just from today and tomorrow. It assumes a 20% curtailment from Lake Texana starting in August of 2026. That is the date that we were provided by LNRA last week when they were projecting Lake Texana to be below 40% reservoir capacity. That projection also assumed no inflows into Lake Texana. We are optimistic that they will continue to see some beneficial rain today and tomorrow. It assumes the Nueces groundwater program continues to operate, but we know the production can be limited due to the TCQ monitoring plan that's established in the bed and banks permit. Another variation nuance that I want to make everyone aware on the dashboard. This assumes that the conveyance line from the Western Wellfield to Owen Stevens is online in December of 2026, which means that 24 million gallons a day will be pumped directly to Owen Stevens. And that's important because then we don't have to, we're not affected by the 7% carriage loss in the river that typically we see, and then we're also not limited by the conditions of the bed and banks permit. The remaining water would then would continue to go into the river. It also assumes the use of reclaimed effluent starting in December of 2026. I do want to point out that our partners who we have effluent reuse contracts with are working very diligently to improve the completion dates of their project, and they're trying to move those projects forward as quick as possible. We're very appreciative of that. This is our updated dashboard model. As you can see, the projected date of level 1 water emergency is now September of this year, September of 2026. A couple of things to note on this graph, and I know we've seen this a number of times, but let's just review it. So the top line, that is our demand curve. You can see the pink dots on the right side of that top line. Those are the offset of demand due to the effluent reuse projects. So that lowers our demand curve. In essence, it lowers the amount of water that we need to have available to meet that demand. The dark blue lines, those are the western reservoirs. The light blue bars, that is the eastern supply, which again is Lake Texana and the lower Colorado River. The orange towards the bottom, that is the Nueces County Wellfield program. You can see the increase of that water as it ramps up throughout the year. And then of course, in December of 2026, you see that increase because that's when that conveyance line is built and operational, delivering the water directly to Owen Stevens. Couple of things, and I know we are all watching the weather more than we ever have. So we have seen some beneficial rain. The western reservoirs have increased from 7.8% to 7.9%. That's combined. Please note that it does take time for for the impact of rainfall to be seen in the reservoirs. The beneficial thing about the rain over the last couple of days is it's more of a long duration rain, which helps saturate at the ground. We've also seen a 1 CFS increase in the Atascosa River just this morning, so that's good news as well. And then the Lake Texana, LNRA has reported this morning that Lake Texana is at 57% capacity. So those are all good things, and I'm hopeful that the rain that we see today will see even a more increase in Lake Texana over the next day or two. I just want everyone to remember it's not an immediate thing. We've got to wait for the water to get to those reservoirs. The line at the bottom of the graph that sort of cuts through the Nueces County wells, that is the percentage of the western reservoirs. And you can see how those continue to deplete. And we all know that the water quality from the western reservoirs continues to deteriorate in terms of TDS and arsenic as those reservoirs deplete. It's certainly unprecedented time that we're seeing in both Choke Canyon and Wesley Seal Dam.
And Nick, just make a comment on Evangeline. We know it's not on here, but yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So one thing to note, the Evangeline project is not on here. There is the preliminary hearing is April 28th. It's a week from today. We hope to have information on how that will proceed. After that preliminary hearing, I can't tell you when, if we get it immediately or a week or so after. That depends on the administrative law judge. Certainly, any new water supply projects like Evangeline adjust this curve. The target continues to be that we receive beneficial amounts of 4 million gallons a day from Evangeline in November if we can get permits by the end of May. The other thing with the support of this council, construction continues on that well field. Pipe is being delivered, sites are being cleared, and we will begin the installation of pipelines at the end of April and the first week of May. All of that is done so that we can get that 4 million gallons a day starting in November. And then the Evangeline project, the water comes online sequentially over time. So we'll see additional water each month after that. But again, it all depends on the permits, and we'll have to understand what happens at the preliminary hearing, which is April 28th. I'd like to go over some definitions. These definitions are important when we talk about how we're going to mitigate this situation. So baseline usage is the determined water usage of each customer class to establish its allocation. So the baseline usage, the key note I want to make is this is usage under normal circumstances. So it's baseline usage is usage of that customer under normal circumstances. Curtailment is the required reduction for us to always have our water supply meet our demand. We do not ever want our supply to not meet our demand. That provides a whole nother set of issues. It results in fluctuating pressures. It may result in boil order notices. Those are things that we are working towards every day to avoid. And the allocations, that is the amount of water that a customer may use per month during the level 1 water emergency. Typically, we talk about curtailment in percentage. It's a percentage reduction from the customer's baseline. The important number for all of our customers to understand is the allocation. If you hear a percentage reduction, that doesn't mean a residential customer has to reduce what they are using by that percentage. It means their baseline is reduced by that percentage. So it's one thing that's not appropriate to say is everyone has to take for example, a 25% cut in what they're using. The established curtailment provides the reduction from the baseline, which results in the allocation. And I'm just trying to make that very clear. So one thing that all of our customers should understand, and the important number for all of them, is the allocation number. Let's talk about our residential customers. Of course, that's a very important customer class. The fixed baseline for all of our residential customers is 7,000 gallons a month. Approximately 13% of our 91,000 accounts currently utilize more than 7,000 gallons a month. And please remember that the curtailment percentage, that would be reduced from the 7,000 gallons a month. The goal for this is that the curtailment would be triggered at the date of level 1 water emergency. This will be one of those council actions that the city manager mentioned at the start of this workshop. And I will talk more about it as we get later in this presentation. Some more information on our residential customers. The graph at the right, or at the left, shows their historic usage. It's clear to see that the impacts of the restrictions from the drought contingency plan among the community is evident. Certainly, I would think a large portion of that is due to irrigating and the inability to irrigate at this point. But you can see the continued usage of that class has dropped over the last couple of years. One of the questions that came up at the previous workshop is the number of residential accounts and how they have grown over the last couple of years. This chart does show the amount of accounts that we have. The increase from 2022 to 2025 is 2.4%, and the average annual increase over that time period is 529 accounts. One thing that I do want to mention at this point is in the previous workshop, we did talk about what a moratorium would be on new meters, and we went in detail on that process and essentially the ineffectiveness of a moratorium on new meters. I want to reiterate that city staff is not recommending at all a moratorium on new meters. During our last workshop, there were a number of questions on multifamily units. Multifamily units can be very difficult. And one thing that we need to understand is that the usage of a multifamily unit can't be lumped into one box. Sometimes there's 10 units, sometimes there's 20 units. It's very difficult. So what the staff has done is looked at these units to set individual baselines, looking at historic usage. Previously, we had talked about utilizing meter size. There can be a huge fluctuation in meter size, so it's very important to look at actual data and their usage. The recommendation is to look at a period of record from 2021 to 2023. That is a period where again, look at baseline as normal usage. So we know in 2024 and 25 there were serious cutbacks due to the restrictions from the drought contingency plan. So we would look at that baseline, the period of record of 2021 to 2023, and we would remove the lowest value in each month to come up with a monthly baseline that would be used for this customer class for multifamily units. One thing that staff has talked about is if I'm an owner of a multifamily unit and I have 10 units and maybe during that period only 5 units were filled and now 10 units are filled, so the historical data may be artificially low, there is a variance process, and that's later in this presentation, slide 47 or so. So we would recommend, if that's the case of any multifamily unit, they put together their data and they submit a variance request. Here's an example of a 1-inch meter for a multifamily, for the multifamily commercial customer account. Again, you can see how their usage has also dropped. Next customer class that we want to talk about is our commercial customers. Again, this is a similar approach. Previously, we talked about looking at commercial customers utilizing the size of their meter, but we've got to understand the size of their meter isn't necessarily representative of the amount of water that they're utilizing. In fact, the meter size can have huge variances. For example, if you look at a 4-inch meter, that can provide as little as 10 gallons a minute or up to as much as 1,200 gallons a minute. So if you set customer baseline, commercial baselines on meter sizes, it would not be appropriate. So again, we need to look at historical data. The process would be similar to the multifamily. We would look at the data from 2021 to 2023 with the lowest value of each month excluded. Again, that would be utilized to determine an individual baseline of all our commercial customers. Attached are some examples of commercial customers. On the left is a 3/4-inch meter. On the right is a 3-inch meter. I think generally you can see that the amount of usage does decrease over time. One of the things that I just want to reiterate is the amount of water and how it differs through different size meters and the variability in that. So we absolutely feel it's more appropriate and the right thing to do to set up individual baselines for each of our commercial customers. The next customer class is our wholesale customers. We've listed our wholesale customers on the slide here. These are customers that CCW sells water to. They take the water and then they have their own set of customers that they deal with. They have their own set of customers which may include a set of large volume users, it may include a whole set of commercial users, may include a whole set of municipal users as well, and it can get very confusing. So what I really want us to understand today is that we need to focus as CCW on our customer classes. We've reviewed residential, we've reviewed commercial, and now we're looking at our wholesale customers. As you can see, we've got eight wholesale customers, and they are listed. And to just further my point regarding the complexity of our customers, and I apologize, the graphic on the left is a little bit complicated. But as you can see, the city of Corpus Christi supplies water to many different entities who then have their own set of customers, who then have their own set of customer classes. One thing I do want to point out on this slide, you do see the city of Three Rivers. Three Rivers is not a customer of Corpus Christi Water. However, we do have an agreement regarding the Choke Canyon Reservoir. Three Rivers does pay for a portion of our operational costs of Choke Canyon Reservoir because they benefit from the reservoir itself. That is the red asterisk that's on the slide. When you look at large volume users, and I think at this point in time, we have to understand the large volume users. One of our wholesale customers, San Patricio Municipal Water District, has a number of large volume users. They are listed on the right of this slide. These customers are not Corpus Christi customers, they are customers of San Patricio Municipal Water District. So they will be affected of how we implement wholesale allocation to San Patricio Municipal Water District. However, it's the business of San Patricio Municipal Water District and any of our wholesale customers to understand the effects on their customers. The exact same thing can be said for South Texas Water Authority, for Alice, Mathis, Beeville, for Nueces County WCID number 4, and Port Aransas. The drought contingency plan does have a prescribed process for setting the baseline for our wholesale customers. It's detailed in the drought contingency plan. That detail shows essentially that the previous 5 years of data would be utilized to come up with a monthly baseline for all of our wholesale customers. Staff has been looking at this rigorously, and we know that this process isn't the most appropriate. And the reason it's not the most appropriate is because of periods like COVID, periods of the addition and subtraction to their customers over that 5-year period, and of course, the long duration of restrictions that have been seen. Again, I just want to reiterate the definition of baseline usage. That is typical usage under normal circumstances. If you look at the last 5 years, unfortunately, there hasn't been 5 years of normal circumstances. And I'll definitely point to COVID during that time frame. Working with our professional consultants, our modelers, our stakeholders, we feel the most appropriate approach is to develop an alternative process to provide baseline numbers for our wholesale customers. This alternate approach looks at data from 2022 to 2024. And again, the lowest value from each month would be excluded. And it also has seasonality. We absolutely understand that our wholesale customers have to deal with seasonality. It establishes a baseline, annual baseline that's divided into 3 seasons. Summer is 1 season, spring and fall is another season, and winter is a 3rd season. And I'm going to give you some examples here that better show the point that we're trying to make. This slide is our wholesale account with the San Patricio Municipal Water District for treated water. The blue bars are their usage. The dark blue line, that is how the baseline would be established using the current drought contingency plan approach. The orange line is more appropriate, and that is the approach that I've outlined in the previous slide, where we would look at 3 years worth of data, subtract the lowest monthly total, and come up with a seasonality allocation. And I do want to take the time to remind everyone that this is establishing a baseline, and the allocation will be less than the baseline depending upon the curtailment percentage. So this is not an allocation chart, this is a baseline chart. As you can see, the orange line is more representative of typical usage for this customer. The next slide is our same wholesale customer, San Patricio Municipal Water District, but this is their raw water account. Same approach, the blue bars are their usage over time. The dark blue line is the baseline established in the drought contingency plan. The orange line is the alternative and recommended approach. You do see some variations in this, but overall, again, the alternative approach maps out to typical usage and what the definition of a baseline is. Next customer is the South Texas Water Authority, and I have one of these graphs for each of our wholesale customers. And you can just see there, again, the bars are their usage. The dark blue line is the drought contingency plan method, and the orange line is the establishment of the alternate baseline method. City of Mathis, please note the City of Mathis, they're taking water from Lake Corpus Christi, but you can see the variances there as well. City of Alice, they are also taking water from Lake Corpus Christi. You can see the variations in their usage. A lot of that has to do with when they are filling their in-town reservoir, which is Lake Finley. City of Beeville, Violet Water Supply, Nueces County WCID number 4. Of course, they provide water solely to the city of Port Aransas. One thing to note, and I do want to talk about this, is you can see the reduction in usage, and you can certainly see where usage during this historic drought has changed. It's certainly changed. It's evident in this graph here for Port Aransas. The next customer class that CCW has are large volume users. Those large volume users are Citgo, Flint Hills, Valero, Javelina, Calpine, Lyondell, Celanese, Coastal Bend, Y-Grade Logistics, essentially that's Phillips 66, STX Beef, and the Naval Air Station. For consistency and working with the stakeholders of our large volume users, we've agreed to the method to look at historic data from the period of 2022 to 2024. It's the same thing as our wholesale customers. We're setting up seasonality because we know operations are different in different seasons for these customers. We remove the lowest value of each month. That is due to operational decisions. It might be, in this case, it might be a plant shutdown. It might be repairs they're making or upgrades. So again, we are looking at, we're trying to develop the most appropriate baseline for all of these customers. And again, baseline is their normal usage during typical time periods. And I will go through the data for each of our large volume customers. And it's the charts are the same for each of these customers. You can see on the left is historical data, in the middle is a seasonal evaluation, and on the right is the establishment of their baselines. So you can see their chart under the historical usage. The chart in the middle shows the seasonal evaluation. There is a blue line in the middle of the boxes on the chart on the top middle. That would be where their baseline resides. And then on the right of the slide is their established baseline usage. So we show the baseline usage in million gallons per month. It is shown within those 3 seasons. Again, it's summer, spring, fall, and winter. We've also showed the annual average per month, and then also the annual million gallons that would be used over the course of a year. I do want to just continue to reiterate, because that this just establishes a base from which we reduce from. Next customer is Flint Hills Resources. The slide is the exact same. You can see the seasonality, the allocation set up per season. You can see their annual allocation and also their annual allocation for the entire year in millions of gallons. The evaluation, again, the charts in the center show where the baseline resides within their typical usage. And you can absolutely see there is definitely seasonal fluctuation in their operations. Next customer is Valero. You can absolutely see the same setup in this case. Javelina. And especially as we come across Flint Hills and Valero, it's important to note that they, and maybe just to reiterate, I stated it earlier, that they are working very hard to deliver their reuse projects ahead of the original estimated schedule. We have Calpine, followed by Lyondell, followed by Celanese, Coastal Bend Y-grade logistics, which used to be Epic. Sometimes it's referred to as Epics, but essentially it's Phillips 66. STX Beef. Then we have the Naval Air Station as well. So just to refresh and reset ourselves, this is the updated dashboard showing the projected date of the level 1 water emergency in September. Staff is working every single day for this not to happen. And with the addition of new water supply projects like Evangeline, addition of inflows, the benefits of all the work that we're doing, the goal is to never get to this point. As of today, this is the date when we will be 180 days from supply not meeting demand. So the goal of curtailment is to, when we get to that point, to ensure that we always have enough water to meet our demand. Operating the water supply system, we do not want to ever be in a situation where demand outpaces our supply. So once you get to this point, you get to a point where you have to end up with curtailment. Working with our modelers and staff, the recommendation is a curtailment up to 25%. As you can see, if you compare this dashboard curve to the previous page, you can see what that does, and it secures that we do not get into a point where demand outpaces supply in a steady and efficient manner. So when you look at our customer classes, that curtailment percentage is applied evenly to all customer classes against their baseline. So the residential class if you recall, we established their baseline as 7,000 gallons per month. The curtailment percentage would be 25%, and that would result in an allocation of 5,250 gallons per month for our residential customers. Again, the allocation is what's important. Currently, approximately 30% of our residential customers utilize more than 5,250 gallons per month on average. It's 30%. Commercial customers, if you recall, we're recommending an individual baseline. They would have to reduce their individual baseline by 25% to result in their allocation. Wholesale customers, staff is recommending the establishment of the individual baseline utilizing the alternative method. They would also reduce 25% from their baseline to get the allocation. CCW's large volume users, we went through the establishment of that baseline. They would have to be reduced 25% from their baseline as well. As all of the City of Corpus Christi municipal accounts, we will look at each of the accounts, set up individual baselines, and they would also have to be reduced by 25%. What we'd like to do now is look at what this means in aggregate for each of the customer classes. So remember, our customer classes are wholesale, large volume, residential, and commercial. The black bar on the left is the 2025 consumption. The dark blue is the baseline. Remember, the baseline is established usage under normal operating circumstances. And then the light blue is the allocation. So you can see across each customer class how things are made up and where the allocations and the curtailment would be felt, excuse me. One thing I do want to point out, Alice, Mathis, and Beeville are wholesale customers. However, they draw water directly from the lake. They don't draw water from the CCW distribution system. So the wholesale customers listed on the left do not include Alice, Mathis, and Beeville. Their take is determined upon the lake levels. So this is essentially the curtailment volume under each customer class and the aggregate of all. The curtailment across all the wholesale customers combined, you can see that it's 7.7 million gallons a day. Large volume users, 7.5. Our residential customers are below, their average is still below the allocation amount. However, I do want to point out, remember I said that 30% of our residential customers do use more than 5,250 gallons a month. There will be residential customers affected. So it's important for our residential customers to understand that allocation total. Commercial customers, their curtailment impact is 0.6 million gallons a day.
Nick, can you you mentioned it earlier, but this is important across the headline that all customers will take a 30% reduction, right? So this is not accurate. That's not an accurate statement, as you said. So customers today that are already below the allocation will just continue their water use patterns without a 30% reduction. Is that right?
That's correct. They will not see an impact. It's very important to understand that the percentage, and we're recommending 25%, is taken off of the baseline and it results in the allocation. If any customer is using less than the allocation, you're already meeting our request. So and just to clarify, so if a customer is using less than the allocated amount, they are not cutting back by the 25%. The 25% just gets us to that allocation amount. Baseline minus curtailment equals allocation. One of the things that is absolutely addressed in the drought contingency plan is that of surcharges. I would like us to look at surcharges and allocation as something different. They are separate measures. The surcharges are a monetary incentive. Allocation is when we allocate water, we tell you what your water allocation is. The goal of surcharges is absolutely to continue the encouragement of conservation behavior and obviously to reduce our water demand. The surcharges that are established in the approved drought contingency plan are up on this screen. For residential customers, it's an additional $4 per 1,000 gallons over 7,000 gallons. So if you're a residential customer and you use 8,000 gallons of water, you are paying an additional $4 a month. You will see that on your bill. So the $4 isn't applied to the initial amount, it's only applied per 1,000 gallons over that 7,000 threshold. Commercial users, it's an additional $4 per 1,000 gallons over a threshold of 55,000 gallons. The non-exempt large volume users, it's $12 per 1,000 gallons over 12.8 million gallons. Wholesale customers are an additional $4 per 1,000 gallons over 25% of the 12-month average prior to March of 2024. So this is, when we think about the calculations and the determination, there's a different structure for surcharges. This structure is clearly identified in the approved drought contingency plan. And this is essentially how it reads. To the city manager's point earlier, this is an item that council will have to approve. Staff recommends approval of surcharges, and this is an item that will have to come to council for your approval. Enforcement provisions. The enforcement provisions, when we think about them for a residential customer, they're the same provisions that are in effect today. We do have some customers that irrigate illegally. They are issued citations. It's the same enforcement measure if we have customers that are utilizing more than their allocation. The important thing to note is that CCW is looking for compliance. We are not looking to issue citations. We will always do our best to alert a customer to make them aware. I know our utility billing office tries to make a number of proactive phone calls. Staff tries to engage our customers if they're home and available to advise them to ensure that they understand the rules and the restrictions. The enforcement, so CCW has 3 water code enforcement personnel. That's for the entire city. Code enforcement for the city resides under the Development Services Department. They have approximately 27 individuals on their code enforcement team. It's very important for all of us to understand city staff has no enforcement authorization to work outside of the city. We don't enforce restrictions in other cities and in customers that are outside our municipal jurisdiction. And I alluded to this earlier, but the utility office will monitor accounts. Will do their very best to advise if something looks out of whack. Our cause has always been compliance and not citation. There are exemptions and variances. This process is established in the drought contingency plan. We absolutely recommend that there are situations that will come up. There are situations that need a variance, that have certainly a logical variance would be required. We recommend that the forms are filled out as completely as possible, and any entity requesting a variance just be as complete as possible, provide the information requested so that an accurate determination can be made. As all of you know from the last workshop, car washing under level 1 water emergency is prohibited. One thing that we do want to say is that alternate water sources, captured water, water well, rainwater, those can all be utilized for these services. When you look at the drought contingency plan, the use of water, it really applies to water from the CCW system. Water that is obtained independently of that system is essentially auxiliary water and can be used to its benefit. I know that recently our rain barrels have sold out. We know the city is utilizing rain barrels, and we know over the last day they've all filled up, so we're very glad about that. Question that we definitely want to clarify is the flushing of motorboat engines. So the washing of boats, as prescribed in the drought contingency plan, is prohibited. However, the flushing of motorboat engines is not prohibited by the drought contingency plan. We do recommend, if it's possible, when you flush your motorboat engine, if possible, capture the water and reutilize it for another cause. But again, the flushing of motorboat engines is acceptable. Under level 1 water emergency, the irrigation of landscape areas is prohibited. What is acceptable is watering potted plants. This can be potted vegetable plants or potted any other kind of plant. The drought contingency plan does not allow for the irrigation of landscaped areas, which include vegetable gardens or fruit trees. Alternate sources, auxiliary water, can be utilized to fulfill this demand. Swimming pools and splash pads. So when you look at swimming pools, and I'm just going to read it for clarity, the filling, refilling, or adding of water to swimming pools, wading pools, jacuzzi-type pools, and hot tubs is prohibited except to maintain structural integrity. This is from the drought contingency plan. We know that pools are a significant investment for homeowners, and we know if they aren't filled, there could be structural defects occur to that pool. That is the intent of how the drought contingency plan was written. And with that, I'm going to turn the next slide over to Mr. Michael Dice, who's going to talk about the city operation of our city-owned pools.
Thanks, Nick. Mike Dyson, I'm Assistant City Manager. So with the city swimming pools and splash pads, we are looking to reduce operations of all the city pools, but maintaining all city pools being open. Splash pads will be a similar process to what we had last year. That would be open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, again with some reduced hours. Ultimately, all city pools will have covers, and we already utilize an evaporative prevention method in the water itself, and those pool covers should be delivered within the next 3 to 4 weeks, so we're being proactive in that. And that plan will be coming out soon.
Yeah, Michael, just go over the first bullet again. So each of our pools has different days that they were open last summer.
Correct.
So that same daily schedule will be in effect this summer.
It'll be exactly the same with just the reduced hours.
So we'll reduce operating hours by about 25%.
Correct. So we can get those pool covers in place, especially at peak times, to make sure we're not having the evaporation.
Right. So like West Guth Park last summer was open 5 days.
Yes,
Bill Witt was open 7 days.
correct.
Those are just two examples. So West Guth will be open 5 days this summer.
Yep.
But the number of hours in that 5-day period will be less.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So we've also worked with our communications team to develop dates for information sessions throughout all of the districts. The approach is very similar to our budget information workshops that we host every year. And what we've done is the communications team, and we're thankful all of their hard work, is they've established the following dates as shown so that our community can reach out to us and ask questions and gain insight. And as you can see, this is basically starting next month and will continue. One thing to note, and I think these sessions are very critical, is we know, and I want to reiterate, the water supply dashboard, it's dynamic. The dashboard presented today was finalized on Saturday. We know there are some changes. You know, one of the most impactful changes could be additional supply and inflow to Lake Texana. And if you recall, that dashboard has a 20% reduction starting in August. So if that gets pushed back, there's got to be updates to that dashboard. Our commitment is to provide this council and our community an update of the dashboard a minimum of every 30 days. It may be less than that if there's significant events that affect the dashboard either way. All that being said, I think these community information sessions are important so we can talk one-on-one with our citizens and explain the details of the dashboard. With that, Mayor and Council, that concludes the presentation, and the staff and I, we stand by for questions.
Thank you. Nick, thank you very much for the exactly 1 hour presentation.
Yeah.
It's a great presentation. So I have some concerns regarding a few things, but the residential part of this. So the plan seems to be, it's being applied uniformly in terms of residential. And so I don't see in this presentation where we have a mechanism for our residents to be informed or to communicate or to know, where am I in my allocation? And actually, let's back up. What is the allocation? So you have the slide that shows the 7,000 baseline, 25% curtailment, which equals what?
5,250 gallons per month.
Okay. So my concern is this. Page 44 shows that if you have a second conviction, that could result in discontinuing your water service. That's extreme. I could never support that, to turn someone's water off. If there isn't some mechanism outside of me walking out to my meter and writing down where I am, I feel like we're missing something here. These are the summer months. You have kids coming back from school. You have water usage increasing just because of household members, right, possibly increasing. So my concern is the resident. How do I know if I typically use 6,000 gallons of water, and I'm being asked to come down to 52, and my household membership could increase, or just because it's summer too? How are we going to create a buffer to help our residents know I mean, they can't be calling in every day and saying, what is my usage today? I just think that's very important, because I think, again, this is being applied uniformly. And if you have you have older homes, toilets that leak, and I know we're not trying to, it's difficult to address every single thing, but the main thing would be communication, to let people know, here's how we're going to help you go from your typical usage to what we need you to be at. And I would strongly, honestly recommend that we propose a voluntary conservation program that empowers residents to better understand what their water usage is and gradually reduce that water usage to X, right? So we dedicate June, July, and August to extreme education and outreach so that people understand you may be conserving, they have to because of where we are today, but we're going to ask them to move that even further. And if we start today and we ask them to abide by, I mean, we'd have to create a program. I just think that would help them. I have a problem, again, with shutting off service altogether, not knowing the circumstance of what that may be. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, and I think your comment, you hit it on the head. So remember, the projection for the date of level 1 water emergency would be September. So the majority of the summer months would not be in an allocation period. And it does allow, just as you said, for time for all staffs to work with all of our customers across all classes to ensure that they understand the things they can do to achieve that goal in the end. I think this is definitely a time period where every one of our customers needs to understand their usage. They need to understand look at their bill, what they're being billed for, and because now is the time that we can start making those positive actions in preparation.
How are we going to do that? That's what I'm suggesting, a program. Not what we do now, a very strong program to do exactly that. Whether I for example, I use 2,000. 2,000 is 2 people in my household. I use 2,000 gallons. I should still be receiving and being educated on, here's what's happening, even though it wouldn't necessarily affect me. I think that's extremely important. I think a program should be created. I think we also need to know how many households actually fall under that 5,000, what was the number? 5,200?
250, so 70% fall under that.
70%.
Yeah, so if there's 91,000, I'm just going to do the math right now, 91,000. So 63,700 customers are currently below 5,250 gallons a month.
Or below?
Below.
Out of, okay, so how many?
And above it is 27,300.
Okay, so 27,300 households would be at risk, could be at risk of being turned off if they violated 12.
They potentially could be above the 5,250 allocation.
Okay, that's my concern. You heard my recommendation. The other thing I want to bring up here is the boats. I vehemently disagree with not being able to wash boats. We're a coastal community. We had 30 to 50 fishing tournaments last year, and the economic impact there was $20 to $30 million to this community or this region. The average cost of a used boat runs $50,000 to $150,000, and the average cost of a new boat runs $120,000 to $300,000. The cost to upkeep any one of those boats in that range is about 10% of that value. We can't say you can refill your pool to maintain the integrity, the structural integrity of the pool, but you can't wash your boat off to maintain that same structural integrity of the boat, because both are huge investments that people make. So I disagree with this. I think this must change. We have to figure that out. Thank you. Councilwoman Paxson.
Thank you, Nick, for your presentation. Super information dense. I appreciate it. I, for one, super appreciate having those figures based on some of those large volume users towards the back, so thank you for providing that. I think what I'd like to know is, looking at those graphs that you have around page 19 and forward to some of those large volume users, where you have a dark colored line that represents the current drought contingency structure for baseline, and then you have an orange line for the proposed new formula, right?
Correct.
Do we have a chart similar to that that demonstrates the same year usage trends in the residential class?
Right, I don't have, well, if you go back to, let me pull up the slide. If you go to slide 7, and maybe we can bring it up on the screen. Or I'll bring it up, let's see. Slide 7, so it's in a line format, it's not in a bar chart, but you can see this is the annual usage of the residential customer class for Corpus Christi Water.
Do you have a printed one that we could put on the little light next to you? Because I just have some questions to point out on that one. I don't think people could see from mine, but if you look at the years 25, 26, 2024, we had started some drought restrictions, but they were still early. So I'm more looking at 25 and 26. If you could kind of point to that 5,250 line in the chart, and I know we can't do that on the screen, that's why I said if we could do it on the little light.
Yeah, he's drawing on it right now, and then we'll put it under the sky cam.
Let's see if that'll work.
Yeah, he's got
Thank you.
Yeah, please excuse the.
The master notes.
It's right up above you, Nick. There you go.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, that's a great line. Okay.
So the black line is approximately, please keep in mind,
Hey, Nick, put that speaker on right there so people can hear. No, the one right by you. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, the black line is approximately 5,250 gallons a month. And this is the residential class average usage.
So this is the current usage according to the blue line.
Correct.
So
That's
that
recorded
black
usage.
line is the proposed new curtailment line.
It's the new allocation line.
Thank you, allocation. So my point being, as you see it go through the other years of historic data, if we were to apply this to those, similar to the charts we have on page 19 and forward, it's not quite the same metrics. They don't seem to add, they don't seem to translate to both the same. On page 19, if they can show that up on the screen real quick for your actual slide. And I'm not picking on page 19, I'm just using that one because they're all pretty much the same or similar. The blue line is the drought contingency plan. And you can see the usage bars. The blue dips below the usage there. The orange, there are some peaks that it dips below, but for most of that orange, all the usage is below. So that's why I'm asking on the residential side if we have a chart that looks like this, because if this is a proposed baseline establishment structure, it's different from how we're applying it to residential. So the line you drew makes me believe that the majority of our users are already well below the 5250.
70% of the residential
70% of
customers
them.
are, 70%.
So
30% are above.
what I'd be curious to see is what that recommendation could look like if we're actually mirroring the process on these stages for that customer class. Does that make sense?
It does. One thing and you alluded to this, Councilwoman, so Stage 2 restrictions was March of 2024. So that's, we started getting, restrictions were coming on, changes were made, you can see that in the data. Stage 3 went into effect December of 2024. So the thing is that the residential customers were making those restrictions already, and that would be evident if you proceed
Right.
with that sample set.
I agree.
Just to clarify.
And I think that if we look at this chart versus that one, you can track that percentage drop across the peaks and low points of usage. You see how it's a much different structure. So I say that I would like to see what that would look like.
And just so I'm clear, you would like to see us run the residential numbers using the same baseline methodology as what's shown for our wholesale customers?
Would that be very difficult?
Yeah, okay. So what Esteban told me is the 7,000 is basically that orange line. It would be the orange line in the new graph. But I understand what you're asking. We can do
Okay.
that.
So my next thing, on this 52, what the messaging that we're saying is 7,000 is the baseline. I think what we need to do is kind of embrace that 5250 if that's the target, because what I still hear, even though we've said it throughout several meetings, what does that percentage mean? What I'm still hearing is the 7,000, and I think part of that could be why we're still hearing that confusion, because I still get a lot of questions if I go, if I'm not, where am I going to be charged for use? So I think that we should be very vocal about that number, the 52. What I also think is if on our actual utility bills, when we start this process, maybe for the first 2 or 3 bill cycles, include in there, show our math. This is how we got to the 52 number. This is your snapshot bill. This is your average, and this is the reduction type of thing as a residential user. And then I do think we need to develop a resource for Q&A. So as the community has questions, because we hear this all the time, but we still have questions. They don't hear it all the time. And we can establish, what I'd like to see is a real good guideline on our customer service protocol is when they ask these questions, here's their resource and here's what we say, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and Councilman, I guess I want to underscore that. Yeah, the allocation number is absolutely what's important. Today, we wanted to show you how we got there, but then going forward, that's the critical number. Yeah.
Councilman Cantu.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, cutting the hours of the pools, I'm not for that. I mean, Corpus Christi has issues right now with gun violence for kids, and cutting hours for pools, I think that's just out of line. It's not the family's fault. It's not the residents' fault that we're in this situation. And cutting back on hours on pools and splash pads is not a good idea for this community. I think a lot of children look forward in the summertime to go to the pools, and especially the brand new pool that Gil Hernandez built. It's a beautiful pool, and cutting hours, it's not right. Second, these surcharges, I just feel that the residents are the ones really paying surcharges. What a large volume user uses over 12 million gallons a month? Because my understanding, what I see, really, there's ExxonMobil, it's the only one, but everybody else is below that.
So, Councilman, and I am glad you brought this up because I want to be clear about it. If you look at the page I just brought up, which is page 25, these are our large volume users. Every one of those, except for the bottom two, pay the drought surcharge exemption fee. So under level 1 water emergency, on their large volume accounts, they will not pay a surcharge. One distinction I do want to make is some of them have commercial accounts as well. Those are smaller meters going office building, things like, they would pay surcharges on their commercial accounts if surcharges are approved.
I just feel that the residents are just taking the heat on it. I mean, it's always the residents who has to pay or not water the grass or whatever the case is, it just, it's upsetting. On the commercial accounts, what does the average user for a restaurant uses a month for water? Do you know?
I don't have that information with me. I do know there are variances in restaurants.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with not just food service, but the amount of business they have. So I can get you that information, but I don't have it with me today.
Where are we with contracts for the refineries? Are we still working on the contracts?
We are hyper-focused on contracts, especially in regards to reuse, because that will directly offset our demand. So this council approved some excellent contracts with Valero and Flint Hills. We are currently working with some other large volume users to further utilize our wastewater effluent to bring those water supply demand numbers down. So that's critical because that helps us all. And the one thing I can say is we're fortunate because those customers can take large volumes of effluent water, and we're not forced with having to treat effluent and use it as potable water like some cities have to.
Back on the pools, what was the hours you guys were considering?
I'm going to let Mr. Dice.
So we were looking at a 25% reduction to kind of mirror what the level 1 emergency would have. So as an example, most of the splash pads, 8 to 8, it would be a reduction to 9 hours in that day. And we'd probably focus on those peak hot hours to have that open at that time. But again, it's just looking at how we can make those reductions. In the pools themselves, we already have the evaporation preventative. We have the pool covers going in. So we have some things that'll help prevent that as well. But we're looking best management practice.
Are you guys gonna put a cover over the pool? Like a
No, just the pool itself,
Okay.
not as like an indoor or shade structure. It's actual pool cover.
Yeah.
Goes on great.
I just feel that, that's the wrong direction to take. I mean, we have an issue here in Corpus Christi with gun violence with children, and I think we need to keep our children at safe places. And, a lot of children don't have the luxury to have a pool behind their house or go to Six Flags or whatever the case is, and they look forward to the summer times to go to our pools and stuff. And I just feel that we need to make sure we keep those pools open. I got some other questions when I come back on my next time. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this truly highlights what residents have been doing all along, which is we've been saving. We've been saving water. We've been doing our part. What it also highlights is that what heavy industry has been using, which is, go on as if there's no drought going on. But, of course, that's my regular soapbox, but at least now people can see it on the graph. So every time that we get a presentation, it's always about us, about residents, how much we have to cut back, like on the pools. I think I asked you, how much water do we actually use on splash pads? And I asked you, I didn't ask you about the pools, but I still would like to hear that, because I've heard a number as to one of these industries that uses, they could cut back 20 minutes, and it would be the same type of amount of water used for one or two of these splash pads. So can you confirm that?
Correct. So splash pads use about 300 gallons per day. So
300 gallons per day?
Correct.
Okay.
Total usage with splash pads and pools for the 71, 73-day summer season is about 1.8 million gallons.
1.8 million. Okay, and just just, I don't care which one you pick, but just one of the heavy water industry users. I don't care which one. Which one do you want to pick? And I'm not, I'm not trying to pick anybody, but let's go with Javelina. We hardly ever hear about Javelina. How much do they use?
So they are, excuse me, Councilwoman. It's like 2.5, right?
How many?
Jeff, can you answer that for me?
1 million gallons per day is what my neighbor just told me. Is that about right, Nick?
Yeah, it sounds about, they're a lower user.
Yeah, so 1 million gallons per day. That's just one of them. Because I know the other ones use way more. And I know that Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, I think, uses like, 12 million per day. So, just night and day, how much water they use in comparison to what us humans use for our consumption. But, okay. So thank you for letting us know how much water our pools and our splash pads use, 300 gallons per day. I also wanted to ask about the, let me see, I wrote down some page numbers. Well, I already mentioned about how the residents are already consuming a whole lot less. And evidently, because we're consuming a whole lot less, it's being used by other customers, because it's not saved. You know what I'm saying? We're allocated 7,000 gallons per day for, 66,768 customers? But we're not saving that, are we?
So it's nine, so the total number of residential customers is 91,000.
I don't know where I got the 66,
So
91,000.
that's roughly 70% of the 91,000. So 70% of our residential customers use less than 5,250 gallons a month. So that's where that number came from. We have approximately 91,000 residential accounts.
So times 7,000? Because that's how much we're allowed, right?
So again, that's the baseline, and we should focus on the allocation number. The baseline subtracting the curtailment amount gets us the allocation, and that's the number that we need to focus on. And when we get to level 1 water emergency, and you can see it in the presentation, all customer classes are affected by that reduction.
Which we are. We've been, yeah.
Correct.
That's why we're focusing on the 5,200, because that's about, with that reduction where our number should be at, or where it,
Yeah.
right.
You can see in terms of total volume, the amount of reduction provided by wholesale and large volume far exceeds any other customer class
Okay.
by magnitudes.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you about the, I guess, page 43 maybe, or where you're having the community involvement. Why is it that District 2 is like the last one for one thing? And what exactly are we expected to receive for these community water information sessions? What are we looking at?
So how I envision it is we will provide an update on the dashboard, an update on the date of the level 1 water emergency, an update on our water supply projects, and we will be absolutely available to answer any questions that any of our citizens have.
Well, I was just checking to see if District 2 still has the highest population of all the districts, and the last I just read was, yes, we do. So why would we be the last ones? We have over, I think, 66,000, maybe that's where I got it, 66,211 when the last redistricting was done. But yet we're the last one, and I see that Districts 1 received 2 sessions. District 4 also has 2 sessions, but yet District 2, being the last one, only has 1. Is there something, am I missing something?
If I could just comment, I'm not responsible for the dates of the sessions or setting them up. I will tell you that this procedure follows our budget workshops, which we did, last budget season as well.
Well,
that's a good, the setup has worked, and I think the plan was just a.
Well, I think it needs some looking at. I think we need to change some of these dates. I think that District 2 are very, very much involved, as I don't know if you pay attention to our public comments, but I don't think that's satisfactory, and I think we need to change that. Let's see, page 47. Okay, well, I'm glad that like I said, our residents are really good about, saving water. As a matter of fact, you mentioned that rain barrels were sold out. Yay for us. But does that mean we're going to be receiving more rain barrels?
There's another order placed.
Okay. Do we know when that'll be expected? Okay.
So just so everyone can hear, approximately 500 rain barrels will be
Great.
delivered either Monday or Friday.
Okay.
The dates depend upon shipping.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Councilman Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. You excluded the Evangeline project pending the court case later this month, correct?
Well, we excluded the Evangeline project because we don't have the drilling and the transport permits yet. The preliminary hearing is set for April 28th.
Okay, that being said, if we included it back in, how much would that delay the curtailment or the announcement for water emergency level 1?
So I don't have that specific date, but it would absolutely push it back into next calendar year. Yeah.
Into the next year, okay.
Yeah.
And it would, Evangeline would continue to provide more and more water as time went along, all things being equal. Right?
Correct. It's a progressive approach, and as those wells come online, it makes its way into the system and continues.
Okay, and then for reuse, and I'm using your memo that you had sent out on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, for time frames of when water's delivered. So you have the Evangeline groundwater delivering 4 million gallons initially in November of this year, and then 1 million in December for a total of 5 million for this year.
Yeah.
Roughly, maybe $1 million or $2 million difference, right? You also have reuse with Flint Hills Resources having 1 million gallons associated with their project at Allison. Now, we had a conversation about Valero and their productivity in getting the water line, and you said they would probably have that by the end of this year.
No, they are moving as quick as possible. I know within the next couple of weeks they're having material delivered. I don't have firm dates from them yet on when construction will be complete, but they are working as hard as they can.
You have the volume for them being in December of 2027. The reason I bring this up, because when you were on vacation, Wes was up here talking about when these projects were going along, and he said that we should have our line from Oso to Greenwood complete by May of next year.
The engineer, Ardura, has estimated by May of next year the project would be completed. but we haven't awarded the CMAR contract for that yet. Once the CMAR is on board, because then you'll have construction and the engineer working together on an established date.
Can you relook at your estimates for volume in your memo for the next week to make sure it aligns with when you get, or you're projecting projects to be completed?
I will update that after I get in. I will request input. So a couple of things. So the Valero is the Valero project, so I'll get updates from them.
Okay.
And Flint Hills, I'll get updates from Flint Hills. The Oso to Greenwood, I'll request another update from Ardura. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to say that what you're projecting here, if all things go well with Evangeline, will actually be pushed into next year, so this is just worst case scenario.
Yeah, because think about, the inputs. You've got the 20% reduction in Lake Texana. You're assuming no inflows into the Western Reservoir, which it's raining now, so that's good, but we're not getting the kind of rain we need, so.
Understand. Okay, so I want to kind of go back into your, how you're doing the allocation and then surcharge structure. It seems to me outside of residential allocations, you have each commercial, wholesale, and the rest of them as individual baselines, but your surcharge structure does not match that.
The surcharge structure is what's in the approved drought contingency plan.
No, I understand.
Yeah, we just.
Are we going to change that to reflect baseline? Because it seems like, to Councilman Cantu's point, each restaurant is different in terms of how much water they use on a particular baseline. Like, for example, if you have like a Golden Corral that has dishes that they wash versus a McDonald's that throws away, that has, paper goods, you may have a different usage in terms of what their water usage is on an individual basis. Same thing with large volume users. They have individual baselines. It seems to me that their surcharges should be based on the baseline that they're doing, not some arbitrary number that is selected that we did through the drought contingency plan. I think we need to review that to where it's on an individual basis, which leads me to the issue that I came across with the exemption of water emergency is kind of implied through the language that's in our current drought contingency plan. And I asked for the individual contracts that we have for the drought surcharge exemption. And come to find out, we only have 2 contracts for that. And what you had sent me, Peter, there was Valero and Equistar. All the other ones don't have contracts for the surcharge exemption fee, and what I would ask for it for was because there was nowhere that there was any language that it was exempt from stage 4 or from water emergency. And even those 2 contracts between Equistar and Valero don't match. They're different languages, which was kind of a little frustrating on my part. But, from the specific language here was in some cases kind of identified in our drought contingency plan. And I'll read it. The city agrees to the fee may be adjusted no more frequently than every 5 years by the city council. The city acknowledges that the company's timely payment of said fee, the company is exempt from the city's water allocation surcharge of City Code Section 55-154 for the month of billing and curtailment of water during reservoir system stages 1, 2, and 3, except when such curtailment is required by Texas Water Code Section 11.039 or required by other applicable state laws or state regulations. However, this agreement does not prevent the city from allocating water supply in the event of a water emergency shortage condition defined by TCEQ regulation or city ordinance. So I think we need to look at that language a little bit closer because it's this isn't matching up. And I want to be very clear here, and it should be, the surcharges should be by baseline of what their actual baselines are, and however it's calculated, not by some arbitrary number. Thank you.
Councilwoman Vaughn.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the citizens because we asked them to conserve and they have. They worked really hard, they stepped up and they were responsible. And thank you for all the work that you've done as well, Nick, and your staff, because I know y'all been working, and Mr. Sinoni, nonstop on this. Let me ask you something. I'm sitting here listening to this about all the users, different users that we've got. Why isn't the city of Corpus Christi listed as a major water user?
Are you referring to the chart where we list the different customer classes?
I'm just referring to the city of Corpus Christi, why they're not, I don't see them listed in all the things that we do. I'm thinking, where are they listed? We've got residents, we've got commercial, we've got industry. And by the way, I do think industry has stepped up. Some people don't, but they have reduced their water consumption as well. I'm talking about the city of Corpus Christi, because if we're going to ask the citizens of Corpus Christi to step back and make all these sacrifices, then we need to lead by example.
Right, so on page 39, we will be reducing our water usage by 25%.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, though, because I'm going to ask you to do something, because
Okay.
I think that it's important that the city do this for the citizens of Corpus Christi. Can we ask the city to compile and publish a list of their facilities? I'm talking about public safety, city hall, everything, all the owned facilities that we have, and include their usage, irrigation, parks, everything that we do, and publish it monthly so the citizens see it. They have a right to see that, because we use a lot of water. I don't know how much. I'd like to know. Do y'all have any idea?
Yes, we do, Councilwoman. It's 1 million gallons. Is that right, Jeff Silva? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our current usage is less than 1 million gallons a day per month.
Okay.
And one thing that I wrote down your request. One thing I do want to say, there is water utilized in some of our treatment processes. Again, I'm speaking for Corpus Christi Water. There's potable water utilized at some of our treatment facilities as well. There is also potable water utilized at our odor control at a number of our lift stations currently.
And that's good, and the citizens need to see that the city is
Yeah.
conserving. That's my point.
Yeah, well,
Let's lead by example and show them that we are as well. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, because when I had the meeting with y'all yesterday, y'all had a different take on the pools. You were going to actually close some of the pools and leave some open. What happened?
After meeting with several council members, Councilwoman Vaughn, we decided to keep all the pools open. And then actually we got feedback on such meeting a few weeks ago individually, like Councilwoman Campos had concerns on closing one of the splash pads. So it seems the prevailing sentiment of the council supports keeping all pools open. And so that's why we changed our recommendation from yesterday.
And I get that and understand what you're saying, Eric. I understand all of that. My point is this: I just think we need to look and see for sure what all the uses of the pools are, because you've got some new ones, you've got some old ones. The older ones I would think would be harder to shut down and start back up than the new ones because of the equipment, the parts, and all of those things. But I just think you still need to look at it and just see.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want to do. I don't want to shut the pools down, but when you get to a situation like this, everyone's going to have to sacrifice. And our pools, all the things that we get to do right now, that's entertainment. Water is a necessity. It's not going to be pretty for what we have to do, and I don't want to do it, but everybody's going to have to make sacrifices. Everybody is. And I think if the public sees that, I just think you need the pros and the cons of opening them for certain hours of the day, because I'll understand you want to do a pool cover, so that helps us with evaporation, but if you're open in the heat of the day, what good does that do?
Well, Mike they have an analysis of all the pools and how much water they use. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
As stated previously, basically the 71, 73-day summer usage is about 1.8 million for all the pools and splash pads. So what the pool covers do is, again, it's another method of preventing the evaporation. We already use chemicals in the pool to help with that. So we're just trying to layer those preventative measures to limit what we're losing to the sky or whatever it may be. So layering that, and again, the suggestion of the limited hours was another possibility to help with that water usage.
Because we want to leave them open, I understand that. When you send me that list, I'd like to see the individual pools.
Yes, ma'am.
And some of the others might want to as well. Mayor, I'm going to have some more, no, the surcharge, that's what I was going to ask you. The surcharge, is that just for 1, 2, and 3? Let me find my notes. For stages 1, 2, and 3, the emergency doesn't count? Does emergency 1 count when you have to go to that? Where you're the exemption for the surcharge, or is it just for stage 1, 2, 3? It just needs to be clarified so the public hears it.
So the exemption from the paying the surcharge fee, and it's called a drought surcharge
Yes.
exemption fee, is applicable even in level 1 water emergency. However, they still get allocated. Those customers paying that fee still get allocated.
So those are in the contracts. You agreed to that.
That is we've had legal review it, and that is the legal review and the opinion that we've been provided.
Okay, it just needs to be clear so the public understands that.
But it is important to note they will be allocated, and they
Yeah.
are making up a big portion of the volume that we have to curtail by.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I had that same note that they're still paying the drought surcharge fee during level 1, right? So they're still paying it, which is good for the ratepayer, good for the rest of us. I will tell you, I did think that they would have to pay overages, that's the wrong word, in level 1 should they use more than the allocation, right? I thought that was the way the system's set up. Obviously, you say I'm wrong, and I'll move on. Hey, we're gonna have a conversation about rate impacts at some point? Is that today?
We are,
Is that the shoe falling after lunch, or?
Not today, but in May, we're going to bring a mid-year review of rates,
Okay.
which is unusual. And so we're not going to wait for the budget to talk about rate setting. We're going to recommend rate increases in a few months.
Because you just have to, right? I mean, we've
Absolutely.
got
Right.
costs we got to pay, and if we're all using half, then still got to make up. I think the bondholder still wants their money, last I heard, so.
Right.
Okay, in May.
In May, June, right.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
late May, early June, but the rate, well, we're going to recommend rate increasing, or rate adjustments go into effect. This is our recommendation. The council, we still need to hear from the council in October of this year, not January.
My big note was I support the alternative approach to the wholesale water provider allocations. Is that the right? But so anyhow, you've asked, you're going to bring that back in either an ordinance or something?
That would have to be an ordinance change, yes, because right now the drought contingency plan
Yep.
approved by ordinance has the 5-year averaging, and we want to recommend this one
Okay.
instead.
Well, I appreciate that work, and I think it's, my point would have been that we want to treat everybody fairly and to the best of our ability. I think we're doing it. I think there's a little consternation over in one of the entities, but that's a conversation for us, for another day. Hey, how do we track, can somebody tell me how to track lake levels? You can do that later. Remember, I mentioned that yesterday.
You did,
Somebody
yeah.
just, instead of me texting you every day going, hey, man, how we at? Where we at? It'd be nice to just say, council and public, you can go to these 3 websites and see
There's
what.
just one website, so it's called Water Data for Texas.
Yeah.
It's by the Texas Water Development Board. I have it on my phone as like a, hot app, but Water Data for Texas, just type that in. It's a real nice feature by our partners at the Texas Water Development Board, and you just click on the location. It tells you pretty instantaneous what the level is.
And is that what we use for Lake Texana's numbers?
So no, so LNRA, and of course, manages Lake Texana. The LNRA's number differs slightly from what's on the Texas Water Development
We
Board
like theirs better.
website.
It's a little higher normally.
Their number is about 2% higher on most days. It averages that.
And how do-
And they send me a weekly or a daily update on where they're at.
Is there a way we can track that on our own, or do we have to get that? I looked at their website.
It might be on their website. I
couldn't
just
find it.
don't know yet.
I could
Yeah.
not find it on their website this morning, but generally
Okay.
speaking, that doesn't mean anything. So if there is a way, just let us know. So if it rains, if there's rain in the river, does that generally allow us to put more of our well water in the river? Because it's all about the TDS levels, is that what?
It's all about the TDS levels. I would say generally, one thing that I do want to bring up is that of course, we all know there's a Cal Allen Barrier Dam. And if you get rainfall below Wesley Seal Dam and in front of the Cal Allen Barrier Dam, it provides water to the river. And so we need to be very careful. And that's another reason we would adjust our well pumping.
What you're insinuating.
So we're not we're not allowing the water to go over the Cal Allen Barrier Dam.
I missed that. I think, Council, I think our conversation needs to be with our beloved partners in Austin about the 15 million gallons a day that we're leaving in the wells that could provide relief based on our current TCEQ permits. I mean, we're spending a lot of energy, and I get it, we're spending a lot of energy on what happens when we hit that level, but I think we also want, and people are making comments, what can we do to avoid getting there? And if, based on the current conditions of our TCEQ permit, we're having to leave as much as 15 million gallons a day in the wells, that just seems like that's bad for the citizens. I get more of high TDS water in the river, it's not good for the river. But 15 million gallons a day would go a long way to the citizens.
So I do want to clarify that number. So the Western well field isn't fully built out yet.
Okay.
So today we're not leaving that volume on the table. I can easily say with the Eastern well field, the max capacity is 10, and we're pumping 4.5 or so.
Right. So we're leaving 5.5.
That's correct there. Yeah.
And then tell me again when the Western comes on fully. I should know this.
So there's a couple of things, and it's in my memo, but the original Western well field, the 250 acres, is scheduled for the end of May, right? And that's gonna be close. I will tell you, we will be running some wells on generators because the permanent power won't be fully there. And then Ed Rochelle, that comes in after that, and I've got it detailed in that memo.
Good for you. So, but at the end of May, we have the capacity to pump 16 million gallons out of the Western well field.
17.
17. All right. So, okay, let's say at the end of May, we have 17, and we don't anticipate being able to pump all 17, or do you feel confident we'll be able to pump all 17 into the river?
We're going to see how the river reacts. I know what I can tell you is we've discussed this point significantly because it affects the dashboard. And essentially what we've utilized in the dashboard is operating the well fields combined at about a 66% production rate. Okay. That's what's in the dashboard. Now, the river is very complicated. The production of the wells, and I've said this before, it changes every single day so we can meet the monitoring plan. The other inputs into the river affect that, these streams, rainfall, and what's coming out of the lakes. So there's things that affect it either positively or negatively, so the production changes every single day. We adjust for that.
But generally speaking, you're saying the dashboard has 66% of the 100% of water we think is available.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
And Ryan's looking at me, but it means 34% of that water is sitting in the well.
That's correct.
While, 70,000 ratepayers or whatever it is, 90,000 connections are going, hey. So, and I get it would take a waiver from the TCEQ and some conversation. I'm not smart enough to know what that number might be, but I would think it would deserve a conversation with TCEQ going, hey, when the lakes are below 10%, I mean, you gotta help us. And so I just want to put that pitch out to.
Yeah, we agree, Councilman. I said it last week in my weekly press briefing, and Ryan's been helping us communicate weekly, or sometimes more than a week, with TCEQ. So they have all the information that we can give them at this point, so we're waiting on TCEQ on their analysis. But we're saying the same thing. We're leaving a lot of water not in production.
All right. Well, thank you. I was in Austin last week and did not hear that those conversations were going on. I did not watch your briefing. full disclosure, got a lot
Yes, no
going on in
problem.
my life. And I know you're brilliant, and I don't want to take
No, I
away
don't
your
expect you
brilliance.
to. I'm
but-
just saying we're making the points, and
Okay.
and to
All
the
right.
point where TCQ is maybe a little sick of hearing from us. That's why we're waiting for them to do their analysis.
Okay, I appreciate it. I think that's important for the ratepayers. I will tell you, I think a pre-enforcement notification process would be a good thing this summer, just to kind of start prepping people. And I think I'm out of town, so I'll circle back around my remaining questions. Thank you.
Councilman Roy.
Thank you for the presentation. I want to go back. A couple council members have talked a little bit about when you look at the residential baseline being at 7,000. And you said that 13% right now use above 7,000 gallons per month, right?
That's correct.
And so one of the things I would like to explore the opportunity to see if maybe we could look into this is that if you've had a residential customer that historically, let's just say over the last couple years, has used over 7,000, I would hope that they're just not ignoring some type of commode leak or something, that there could be something related to that. And part of the reason why I'm bringing this up is I have had a couple phone calls where we've had residents in my district that have a large number of children, more than the average, right? And so one of the things that I always talk about when I hear somebody, when they complain about their utility bill or how high it's been, is just to make sure, number one, that hopefully that they've looked to make sure that they don't have any leakage or anything of that nature. And, but what I was thinking is that, if possible, I would recommend that we allow a variance report to be submitted for those families. I think there could be situations where you have foster parents that may have a temporary increase in the number of children in their household. That could be a very good, valid reason for why they have been over. And you can see this statistically as far as their use. If they've used 9,000 gallons for the last 3 years, right, then there could be a good reason for that, and maybe look at the possibility of allowing them to have a variance. Submit the information at least to say, hey, this is the reason why. I don't even want to get into the fact, and I don't know the legality of it, but you have some people that actually work out of their home. And so let's say that, for example, that they're preparing meals for people, I don't know. Maybe they use an extraordinary amount of water. There could be a very good reason behind that, and they're operating within the legalities of what they can do, But I think we ought to look at that, allowing the residents also. Because we know statistically the residents have, we're lower than 5,000, right? So that's just my suggestion on that, if we could look into that possibility. I think it would definitely help with those families that have more children than the norm. Maybe they're an extended family, they got grandparents, because that's, nowadays with the economy, that's an issue. You have people that have their mom and dad or whatever move in with them. And I've seen situations where both sets of parents have moved in. And, so we need to take that into consideration, I would think.
Yeah.
That's really my only, when I look at our industrial partners and the list, thanks for providing that information. I think overall our industrial partners have also lowered their consumption. There is one particular group that I was following, but I think statistically part of that has to do with just the fact that that particular company was sold. It went through new ownership. They were shut down, and then I watched the spike as they ramped back up. But they're one of the smaller users. So I was just looking at that particular trend. The other thing is I want to make sure, because I don't know how this works, but even with our large industry users, they have multiple water meters, right?
That's correct. That's
so
correct. Some of them have a large volume meter, and some of them have commercial meters as well.
Right. So we have to also figure out how we're going to look at that in terms of making sure that what their total usage is, Because, for example, what if they have a building or a house or something like that that's technically under the corporation,
So that would be considered a commercial account, and we'll view it as a commercial account, because that's correct.
Okay, perfect. Anyway, thank you, good presentation.
Councilman Barrera.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Roy, good points. Seriously, what is it? I'd see that now where you have, individuals, particularly foster parents, that would have greater usage. Along those lines, you might want to think of, churches and their convents, as to what they utilize, something of that nature, and find out where we're at with there. A couple of things. We didn't mention in here foundations, just for the public's sake.
Right, you're still allowed to water your foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, can you go over the rule, if you have time, Councilman, the rules, what are the rules? A council member asked me the other day,
So foundation watering is allowed.
It's drip
With drip irrigation.
irrigation every other week, right? Every other week? Every other week with drip irrigation only.
Okay, drip irrigation, I'll just make that clear. Occasionally I see, I won't say which neighbor, I see them saying I'm watering my foundation.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, I know we don't have, at least where we pay our bill, it just basically tells us how much we used for the prior month. Is there any type of software, I'm just curious, that we've looked into that basically says what somebody's usage is? Not necessarily in real time, but maybe the prior week or something?
So we have, and I wish it was implemented, but it's not yet. We're working with IT to improve that ability to for customers to log in and see their usage. Yeah. The caveat I do want to point out is our meters they transmit through radio. So there are times when you can have a car parked over a meter and it will not transmit for the day, but then the next transmittal is for day 2, and it may look like you're using an extraordinary amount of water, but it's actually over a 2-day period. So those are things we've got to be very careful so people understand. So the totals are right, but it doesn't always, because of other issues, cars parked over the meters doesn't always transmit. Okay, daily.
Well, I think that's the whole thing. I think if somebody could look on a weekly basis, like on my electric bill, I get emailed what my usage is, and how so that way I know what it is, and then we have the same thing is that for some other properties that we have, we get those too, and so I think that would be. If there's a possibility, do we have any idea when that might be implemented or rolled out?
I'll get back to you with an update, but I know it's been talked about, and I've had conversations with Councilwoman Campos about it as well. So I'll get back with you with an update.
I thought Peter had.
Yeah, right. So there are it's like I saw about 2 years ago, San Antonio Water System encouraged their residential customers to buy a product made from Flume. It's made by the company Flume, F-L-U-M-E. And so it's a real simple to attach to your water meter, real-time application that tells you how much water you're using. Is your water on? So we need to work with that company to see if we can get discounts if we do some type of a batch buy. But that's just one device. There's many out there. So part of the question of what are we going to be talking to residents about when we have these meetings, that's one of the things, is how can you determine how much water you're using? How do you figure that out?
And I think that'd be a useful tool, just particularly if there's a leak or something.
Well, that's what right now I use it for that, and it really has helped us out a lot in my household.
I think
there's inadvertent leaks that could have.
I'm going to call him out. I know Mark was having an attack last year when there was water all over his driveway. And he said, but it was a leak. It was a leak.
You need one of those Flume devices.
But we had that same thing in another property that I have. We had a leak, and you can just see at the bill from last year. Yeah. That's the only time, and that was the only time they went over 5,000 gallons, by the way.
Right.
And so I just think that that's the thing. And I don't want to take away from the public, but the different on the graphs is when we put in water restrictions.
Yeah.
You could see the graphs that, okay, you can't wash your car, can't water your grass, can't water your shrubs, you can't do that. And that's what it is. I mean, I think the mayor has a good point. We want to educate, we want to get the community all on board and they understand. I think the majority of the community that has called me says, hey, I get it. And a lot of that, believe it or not, I know somebody might scoff at me right here next to me, but believe it or not, a lot of them want to preserve it because they want industry to be able to have that ability to be able to preserve industry because they know how important the jobs are, And so I think that's one of the things. They know that we're all in this together. And I've said on the radio numerous times, we've been a manufacturing community for 70 years. So we have to plan, if we want to maintain that identity, we need to continue to utilize that. So, 25% reduction on me is a whole lot less and a whole lot more manageable than a 25% reduction on one of our high volume water users. The other thing is, and I'll use Alice as an example. Obviously, I know they've got 2 wells.
So one well is operating. The second well is not online yet. It should be shortly. I don't know.
And I know we can't argue with their business model, but have we talked to them about if they're going to have what level of curtailment or if they're going to implement it? Because I think Alice is only using about 2 million, maybe 3 a day, and their wells are going to bring in about 1.5 million.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
And I know they're good partners. I mean, I would admit they're good partners, and they took some initiative here. So I think that's the thing. I know in particular Mathis and Beeville have already entered into that, but they're also digging wells. So are they going to, or once again, I guess that's the whole thing. I would just say we find out what it is they're doing, because right now we don't know.
Well, Mathis is currently drilling a well. They are hopeful. I talked to their city manager just last week. They're hopeful to have it online by the end of May. Is their latest target?
Yeah, but I mean, they're not going to. Are they going to continue to curtail? That's my thing. Yes.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And the point is they're adding additional sources so that they can make up for the curtailment from the CCW system.
Okay.
So they can remain whole.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I guess that's the whole thing. I just once again, I just think we just need to reiterate, even though they're bringing their own sources online, that we're all in this together because because they're still purchasing water from us, and I don't think they're ever going to go away. I think that's the whole thing. They still want to have the system because once we get desalination on board, then what is it? Then that allows our reservoirs to replenish. And that's the most inexpensive water that we have available. And that's the one we want to utilize. So, okay, so let me see if I had one other note here. How much time do I? Well, I have 16 seconds, so if I come up with it. I already said foundations. Okay, thank you.
Nick, I'm going to go back to residential really quickly. I don't agree, Peter, that I think we should be asking our residents to purchase anything. I mean, I think that's something that we need to think about and how we can help be that buffer to our residents to know where am I in my water usage. I don't know what that is, but you have a call center implementing something, not asking them to pay for something, especially at this point in time. That's my 2 cents there. Back to the boats. I forgot about the foundation. So we are actually allowing, right, which is rightful, the dripping of or watering of the foundation through drip irrigation.
Every other week, yes.
Same thing with the boat, because it's the structural integrity of the house. There is a structural integrity of a boat, of a huge investment that people make here. And I want to say the number, I don't have it right here, but it's amazing how many thousands of boats that are purchased here in Nueces County in the region. So maybe boats are part, and y'all can figure that part out. They're part of a household usage if you store your boat at home. And again, y'all can work that out, but I can't underscore the importance of being able to wash down a boat because of corrosion and what it will cause. We said the communication. Okay, I'm going to jump over to commercial really quickly. what's the criteria and the limits that define a, quote, health and safety exemption? And what uses qualify and what uses do not under that, under health and safety exemption?
So we've worked to better clarify that language in the drought contingency plan. We really need to look at every variance request carefully, and we will rely on Chief Wade to help us navigate through that. Obviously, I think we can think of the obvious cases when you talk about required surgeries in a hospital, things like that. Right. Those are the easy cases. There are certainly other levels where that could fall into, and all I can say is that we're going to work with Chief Wade and the Emergency Management Department to better understand that, in addition to working closely with all those customers who request that. So it's really a conversation to understand their business, their operation. CCW does not, we're not experts in operating hospitals or schools, and
Right.
we need to understand that, and we want them to present the facts to us.
Can I see my time, please? If you can leave that up there, thank you. Okay, so that's something you're still working out. That's extremely important, I think, to many. That's correct, Nick?
Well, we'll take every variance request, look at it with due diligence to better understand it. We need to take everyone seriously and look at the facts presented, and so that there's no adverse effects across, that would have a ripple effect on our health and safety support services throughout the region.
Okay. I'm going to give you a scenario that I was given, and I'd like to ask what your thoughts and what is the answer to this. So if there's an entire shopping center on 1 meter, and it uses, a high amount of water, 100,000, 200,000 gallons, and you have 80% of it is, say, a laundromat, a water mill, and some restaurants, but no one uses above 55,000 by themselves. So who pays the surcharge? How do we go around situations like that? Because that would exist across the city, right?
Right, so the meter is with one, in that case, the meter is with one customer. So, and we're looking at that one customer in the same manner as we look at our wholesale customers. Our wholesale customers have many customers also. They, just like that entity, have to manage their own customers. CCW wouldn't get further deep into their business to manage their individual customers.
So the landlord would have to figure out who pays what. But he's the one that's going to get the violation, surcharge, or what have you.
Because the account's with the landlord.
With the landlord.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, so this gets into what I was saying earlier. The example the mayor just gave doesn't work when you have an arbitrary number, right, for surcharges.
For the surcharge.
Right, 55 million gallons, right? Instead of doing a baseline, which you have for allocation, a baseline, right?
Yeah, and again, the surcharges, that is what's in the approved plan. So we reiterated what.
That goes to my question here, is that you're going to make change, these changes require changes to our drought contingency plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
okay, so
yeah, that's correct.
When are we going to see that language, and when do you expect us to vote on it?
So the goal after this meeting today is to work on putting this together. Our goal is to have the majority of it to council next week on April 28th.
So you want us, you haven't shown us the language to the drought contingency plan updates, and you expect us to vote on it next week?
That was the goal.
I think you need to change your goal. We need a lot of time to talk about it because there's a lot of things that we haven't agreed upon here. One of it being mainly these arbitrary surcharges. Now, I understand when we first did this last year, it was the best information we had. We didn't talk about baselines. We didn't talk about, individual structures. I think we probably need another week.
Yeah, that's fine, Councilman.
At least to review the language so we can all be in alignment on it. I don't think 1 week's enough.
No problem. We can put it on for May 5th, Councilman, and maybe
Okay.
next week we could do a briefing on, that's it. It's an interesting concept. We hadn't thought about it, to do the surcharges based on individual
Baseline.
Well, I mean, like I said, you have different restaurants that have different baselines of water usages, and you're going to have this arbitrary number that doesn't apply equally. Now,
Right.
the example she gave with, 1 meter for the entire complex, their baseline may be different,
Yeah.
right, for the entire amount. So you do the percentage based on the baseline of their usage. Now, we have smart meters, right? The MCUs, MTUs, that we can look at their water usage on an hourly basis. I've seen it. So we have the ability to do this, to charge them based on their baseline on individual basis. I don't know what the technology of that would be. I guess we'd have to ask Peter Collins to kind of put his input onto it. If we can do something along the lines and notify people of what their baseline is. Now, I don't think you need to do that on residential side. I mean, if you're going to be using more water, probably if you have a swimming pool, I'm not going to worry about that. But I think when you're talking about businesses and livelihoods, or you have a lot of individual meters for a multifamily complex, you're going to have to do it on a baseline basis.
Yeah, Councilman, just to clarify, you're requesting the surcharges use the same baseline as the allocation, right?
Right.
So okay.
So if you're going to do let's say a 20-25% allocation, or based on that, then that's what your level should be for your surcharges.
Okay.
Right.
I understand. Yeah.
Right now, and I say this for industry as well. If you're going to have that particular thing, it should be based on their baseline, not 12.8 million gallons a day. I don't know where that even, it doesn't make sense. It should be based on their baseline, because some industry won't ever make that. I mean, Javelina's what? Yeah. And this is on a monthly basis.
Month,
right? So they can only use 12 million gallons a day on a monthly basis. Well, if they're using 1 million gallons a day, well, they'll hit it halfway through the month. Right, so I think it should be the allocation, and the surcharges should be based on their allocation, on what their baseline is, and then what the curtailment is from that. Same thing for wholesale customers. Now, it's going to be an interesting way to kind of go through this. Okay, and we can kind of address this, offline to make sure we're aligned on it. I want to talk a little bit about what the city's water loss. In our last drought contingency plan, it was 7%, 7.25%. Where are we now?
So I'm gonna let Wes Nevgen, our director, talk about it. But I do want to say that, I'll let Wes cover it.
Good afternoon, Wesley Nevgen, Director, Water Systems Infrastructure. We track it on a daily basis. Our current difference, we're going to call it, between what is produced at Owen Stevens measured through those meters versus what's measured through the 107,000 other meters in the city, currently is around we average between 4 and 5 million gallons a day difference. Now, there are variations in there when you consider water loss. That's not necessarily like we've talked about due to leaks. You're talking about meter inaccuracies is a big part of that. Unavoidable losses is a big part of that, which is considered in the water loss report. So we are reaching a threshold where it's actually any more money spent on that would not give you the return that you're looking for. If you look at the calculations in the AWWA M14 manual on water loss, we are almost at the leakage index of a 1, which is what they consider the best.
So you're saying we're losing 4 to 5 million gallons a day?
We're not losing. You're saying we're losing water as if it's leaking on the ground. We're not losing.
Well, you said water loss report, 45.
It's not a water loss report, it's a water audit. It's like an audit so we have meters that come out that measure from Owen Stevens. They go to 107,000 other meters. So you check the meters that it measures at everybody's individual household against the meters as it comes out of Owen Stevens. So you have a natural variance right there. The meters, as they get older, register less water. We all know that. That's how they are. Our meters are reaching 20 years old, which is why we have a CIP project right now in the book to replace them. That means as your meter accuracy decreases, they're registering less water than what Owen Stevens is registering pushing out. So that delta accounts for a big part of what you're talking about.
Okay, so we're not accounting for or losing it via just meter differences.
Not following your question.
Okay, so when your water audit says that have a difference between the difference between it is 4 to 5 million gallons on a daily basis from what is produced, from what is billed, or what is measured. So it's a combination of what is lost through leaks, what is lost through meter inaccuracies. So it is still a loss in some aspect, right?
Yes, it's a lot. That's why I asked, are we talking about water loss through leaks? Are we talking about water loss through meter inaccuracies, theft, unmetered water that's not through firefighting, flushing, things like that? So there's a lot that goes into that report when we talk about water loss. I want to make sure it's completely understood that we're not talking about water we're losing through leaks that's just being wasted.
I'm not saying it's being wasted. So I guess we're doing what, 109 million gallons a day nowadays?
No, about 86.
86 million gallons?
From Owen Stevens?
Right.
Treated.
Yes. So that's
on average.
That's what, still 7%, 7.5%, somewhere in there?
It's around 5, because you also have to count, we have 1 million gallons that's fed back into Owen Stevens from that as well. That's not metered in that.
Okay,
Owen Stevens
that's clear as mud.
Water. It is. The report gets really, if you watch my water conservation report, I did a presentation on it, and there's a lot of inputs into this.
Well, I think we need to hold ourselves accountable for that water audit difference. However you want to call it, we need to hold ourselves accountable to make sure we're reducing that.
And to your point, I'll answer one final thing. Like, as far as what we estimated we lost on leaks last year that we knew of from leaks that we saw in the system was approximately 56 million gallons. That's what we saw for the whole year that we estimated we lost in leaks.
Considering the AT&T contractors is breaking our water lines, I think we need to recover that water loss from them.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Vaughn.
The thing that I'm concerned about, we're talking about the foundation, and you have to have a drip irrigation in order to do it every other week. Well, realistically, most people don't have drip irrigation. I mean, you can't afford to put it in. A landscaper usually does it unless you're smart enough to do it yourself. So that's unfair to the ones that don't have it, because your foundation is so important. So I wished we would revisit that and see if there's a way, because I think some of them are actually doing it when they power wash their house. It's getting down into their foundation, which is pretty smart. But I just think, Mr. Sinoni, we need to revisit that.
Yeah, so the drip you could have one you're describing that's built by a contractor. Another term for drip irrigation is a soaker hose.
Sucker hose?
Yeah, soaker hose. It's just a flat hose.
Well, we need to make that clear, because when I think of drip irrigation, I think about what we've got that goes along the line. They would not think soaker hose.
Right. Look, we can add language to this, a drip irrigation or soaker hose that you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Point. Yeah, we'll have to.
Well, they just need to know that they can go get that, and it doesn't have to be installed.
Right.
We're talking about leaks. Does the city have anybody, a group that monitors our leaks?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
we have a very robust infrastructure group. We have crews that work and respond to leaks very quickly. In fact, I'll invite Wes to come up again to share some of the information, some of the time it takes to respond, and then the time it takes to address the leak. So Wes, I'll put you on the spot again.
So when we get a call through the 311 system, a work order is created, and from that point to the time that we respond to an actual leak is on average 37 minutes. That's when we have personnel on staff. Considering that a lot of times it takes an hour to drive across the city, that's a pretty good time frame. From that point, when we get it, we have the leak repaired in approximately 6.5 hours. And that doesn't mean the pipe is leaking the whole time. That's from the time we get the call to the time that they finish getting it repaired and get the water turned back on and back into service. So 6.5 hours is outstanding. You're not going to find another large city that comes even close to us really on the time frame that we take to repair those. The other factor that is in that is we can't even start a repair on a leak until line locates clear. We have to wait 2 hours for that. That's for safety purposes, to make sure there's no AEP electrical lines, gas lines, things like that before we start digging. So from the point that we get it to full repair is on average 6.5 hours.
Well, I wish there was some way we could recapture some of that water whenever it's flushing out, and I don't know how you would do that, but like I've seen them when they do the hydrants and the water's going all over the place. Can they not recapture it by putting a tank or something up to their truck? Because we could use that water for other things. I'm just saying it's a lot of water. You've seen it on the streets, we all have, and we get complaints about it.
Ultimately, you could do that. It's just a matter of time and money when it comes to doing those. Are you getting your return back on what you're capturing?
Everything's about money, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one other thing, and Councilman Roy talked about more than one person, basically, and different ones that use more water. I got a text from someone yesterday, they have 7 people in their family. Well, they use 11,000. So that's huge, and so I think and it's only 13% you're saying that uses above the 7,000. So I think we have to revisit that as well.
I would fall back on the variance process, and I would recommend that customer submit a variance. The reason I answer in that manner, Councilwoman, is we can't identify all of those circumstances. But if people bring those circumstances to us, there's a process to handle it.
And I appreciate that. And I think that if we do that, we need to make it really simple to the public, kind of like the soaker hose, so that they know what to do and how they can do it, and just communicate really well.
I agree.
Thank you.
Completely agree.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you. Okay, so the process would be a variance to apply whenever you have unusual or extenuating circumstances. Like I think I've been telling you since yesterday about our park adoption, that we planted over 30 fruit trees and they have irrigation or drip lines, but that is going to be affected, you said.
Yeah, how the drought contingency plan reads, you would not be able to irrigate them with CCW distribution water. They can absolutely be irrigated with auxiliary water sources.
Okay, so we would have to, I guess, get in line with some of the potable reuse water that people have used or use.
So there's the reuse water that's available at OSO. There's captured water and rainwater. There's gray water. There's well water. Some people have wells. Those kind of things.
Okay. I do have a question that someone sent me, and I did email it to you, but since I've got a little bit of time. The question was day zero estimates. When we are completely out of water, out of our western reservoirs, what is the, let's see, it's a common metric. The reason I ask is because if you look at the reservoir drops over the past 6 months, it looks like we'd be completely run out of water within the next 1.5 years. So that's for both the eastern and western reservoirs. So do you have zero estimates? Like, how would you?
If you go back to the dashboard, and I may try and put it on the screen. The purple solid line at the bottom, that's the capacity of the western reservoirs. So that's not referring to Lake Texana, that's only referring to
our
Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi.
Okay.
But you can see how those percentages eventually go to near zero.
Okay. Well, hopefully that answered their question. Okay, that's all that I had. Thank you.
Councilman Scott.
I wrote a note, Mayor, flume good. Carol's watching, she wants, that's a big deal to her.
Right, and to the mayor's point, they're right, we need to see how we can help the residents even more. I know San Antonio had a discount program that they work with Flume, and there's other applications, but I'm just telling you from my own experience, it works great.
Yeah, makes complete sense, because Roland's right. We had somebody call, by the way, they're wonderful. The city called and said, hey, your water usage is up. And we went, no. And then we called somebody out, and sure enough, there was a leak that we were unaware of. So I think staff did a great job, by the way, on that. But if people buy those on their own, can they install them through?
That's the great thing about them. It's very easy to install. You just strap it around the pipe and that's it. Plug in. I'm
going to remember that when I'm in back and water's going everywhere.
Your wife will be proud of you when you get that done. So
I have a couple of notes. My sense is there's going to be you need a human infrastructure to handle the variants that start coming your way. And so if you need any council support for that, I assume we have 5 people working in that department. My sense is there's going to be a time period where you're going to need 15. And so
absolutely.
Let me know.
Absolutely. And we're strategizing on how to best handle that.
Okay. I do have a soaker hose on my foundation. I use a timer, ultimately turned it off because of the days and times of the week, but we just go out and turn it on and then go back and turn it off. So yep, I'm a big soaker hose fan. Sounds weird. I have 2 final comments. I'm interested is why did we ask Texana to give us a water dashboard based on no inflows? I don't know that they've ever not had inflows in Texana.
So that's their process. So currently, and the city manager and I have been working with their very professional team, and for the last couple of months, they've sent us weekly updates and estimates when they will be below 50%, 40%, 30%, 20%, and their approach and how that data is determined is assuming no inflows.
That's interesting, because it's a very dynamic lake. I mean,
it's what we've come to realize and what we've been told is that it fills rather quickly and it depletes quickly as well.
Last thought, thank you. I appreciate you answering that. Last one is I am critical of the no new water dashboard concept, but just because I do think it's going to rain, maybe we're used to getting 10 and we're going to get 1 or 3, but to imply no new water, I think is not going to be an accurate result. So my fallback is how often, you said it earlier, how often are you willing to update the dashboard?
Yeah, so to answer your question is we are committed to updating it at a minimum at least every 30 days, and it could be more. So when the dashboard is updated, how we rationalize the data takes into account the actual data that we've seen in the current lake levels.
I think there's a lot of people that are going to follow this, and they're going to make business decisions based on not having any water in September, and I think that's inaccurate. And so anything we can do to update it, I think there's a lot of investment that is looking at this presentation, and I understand to be as conservative as possible, but I think it lacks some reality. And so as it rains, if it rains in the next 2 months, which is our rainy months, I'd ask that we update it even more so than 30 days.
And just to clarify, and I'm glad you said that, we know there's a lot of constituents watching. So September is the date when we project to be 180 days away or 6 months from supply not meeting demand.
Right.
So as it stands in September, it doesn't mean system pressures will fluctuate. It doesn't mean, all of those adverse things don't happen, but we are 6 months away that scenario.
Right. I just think they've got 5 cities in Texas they can invest in, and do you invest in Corpus Christi if we're going to go into level 1 emergency in September? And that's based on it not raining at all, which I don't think has historically happened, but maybe it has. I like the old concept, by the way, which was you took the worst month of the worst year and you plugged it into that model. And I understand we went to the 24, and then we used 25, and now we're just doing no new water. So I'm not going to beat you up any further. I just want to tell you I'm critical of that. That's not what I would have done. And if we do have rain events in the next 45 days, I would ask that you to update it. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. We'll be monitoring the Evangeline issue next week. So that could be a big update already. Hopefully so. That'd be 4 million gallons we'll add starting in November.
Help from the TCQ.
Yeah. TCQ is our partner and friends, and they're going to help us out. So,
Councilman Roy.
Nick, again, thank you for the presentation. It's always good when I felt like I've learned a lot as far as some of the details and the mindset. But one of the things I want to just ask is that I know that you regularly meet with industry. And so have you had any, and I'm sure that part of those meetings led to coming up with this plan, right?
That's correct.
So has industry or even some of the commercial users, have they given you any feedback in terms of the workability of this plan? Is this something that, is it, it's conceivable, but is it something that in reality would be able to be put in place and continue for them to operate and not harm?
So that's an excellent question, and I'm going to answer it from the CCW perspective. And again, we don't, CCW doesn't operate refineries, we don't operate, and we don't pretend to know how they operate. The experts are those companies. The indication that we've been given is that the percentage of curtailment leading to the allocation is not going to be easy, but they are all committed to working hard to meet that. And ways that they will meet it, it's a plethora of solutions. Some of it is effluent reuse, some of it are measures they're doing inside their plant. It's all of these things coming together. What industry has said, they are committed to working towards that to meet the allocation requirements, and then also, of course, that results in them sustaining their operations.
Well, good.
Specifics have to come from them, yeah.
Right. From an education standpoint, one of the things I actually pulled up, we're pretty much empty nesters, so I've only got 3 of us at home right now, but for about a month or 2 months, it's interesting that the timing here, 2 of my kids are coming back as one of them starts vet school, right? So he's going to be here. And so I thought, okay, how's this going to impact? Where am I at? And so I pulled up the information to see where I'm at and how much I'm using. And I had a leak it was a very, very small leak, but I had that repaired a couple months ago. I wanted to see how much it would change the volume. But I think it's good for consumers. I mean, we are doing our part, and just being cognizant of it, being reminded of it, letting us know. I think, that positive reinforcement that if we did bring our usage down from 1 month to another month, to be reminded about that. And I think all those things are really good. But it's certainly, I started thinking about ways that I haven't even put in place because, I've got a 17-year-old daughter, and sometimes I think she's probably using 3,000 gallons herself. But anyway, those are all good things, and I'm glad that we had this opportunity, and I hope that everybody tuned in and listened because we can learn. And the takeaway from this is, even though I think the residents have done well, and I think most of industry has, we still can learn from this and continue to improve. So thank you.
Yep. Okay, Nick, and everyone here, staff, everyone who put together this presentation, I know that was a feat. Thank you. Councilwoman Paxson.
Sorry, thank you. I do want to just, because I know that you look for consensus, I do want to echo what Councilmember Roy said earlier about case-by-case variance, being open to those discussions for special case, particularly residential. I think that that's really important. That was a good note to make. What Councilwoman Vaughn said about being very clear with these different drought restriction levels. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, and we sometimes feel like, well, we have it listed and we've said it and it's black and white, but it's not, because there's so much information out there. And so I would really like to see, and I just kind of jotted the notes down I brought up earlier, something we can add to our bill, an FAQ type SOP for folks calling in and asking questions. And then I think that there's a lot of value to adding to potentially our website, a section on auxiliary water source how-to, if you will. Where do you go? What do you apply? What's the structure? What's the process? Not that we're telling people to necessarily do that, but we're making it incredibly simplified for them to know how to do that. And then also, I think that we need to have a designated presence for our stance on the variance requests. I think we've talked about it a lot up here, but I don't know how far that's going to echo, but something to point people to in a positive manner. And then providing some of those examples of what we talked about here today. And then I did see that we still do keep on there that stage, each drought stage information on that. So continuing that as we move forward into the next stages. The rain barrels, I said it last time, I'll say it again. I really think that we need to look at a program where we're not charging carte blanche for those. I'd be happy if we even looked at some of the sponsorships we're doing around town and canceled some of those right now under an emergency type situation. You know, one event table could equal anywhere from 16 to 24 rain barrels for people. They're $50, but that's attainable. We have budget allowances for procurement, and I really would like to see that as a priority, how we can get these to people.
Yeah, currently, the rain barrels are, of course, they're like a net zero cost to the city. What we charge is our cost.
I'd like to take that charge away. As far as looking at allowing our residential customers to protect some of their higher investments, I think your vehicle is a similar item. And if a constituent would like to use a bucket, a handhold bucket, and clean their vehicle to protect it, we live in a salt air environment, and they're staying in their allocation, then I think that should be warranted. Somebody asked me that there's some comments circulating I think on our videos, saying that the city mentioned we were going to put liens on houses for noncompliance. Could you validate or deny that?
Yeah, we can deny that. Nobody in the city's ever said that, so it's probably.
I just wanted
we're not in the business of placing liens in people's homes if they don't pay their water bill.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Along the lines of the variances, our hospitals, our schools, our Naval Air Station, I think we're trying to work very hard with all of our partners to protect and retain that asset.
That's correct, Councilwoman. Yeah, we've met with the hospitals already, and Ryan Skrabacek has met several times with the military base. So both of them will be working with us for variance.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. And then two more things. I would like to see an updated scenario, provided that we get the variance request from TCEQ and looking at our wells, and provided that the 28th goes successfully and Evangeline can come online. Could we do a scenario for those two parameters? What I'm seeing, page 37, is from June 2026 to November 2026. That's only about 20 MGDs of wells.
Yeah, that's right. That's taking account the effects of the operating protocol from TCQ. That's correct.
Okay.
So you want to see the full available amount pumping along with Evangeline.
To have a scenario of if both of those requests are positive.
Okay.
And then last, trying to be quick, I ran out of time last time, Nick, but Nick, thank you for providing these consumption numbers, but we're missing another element of my request on here. So if I pull any random slide, let's say 29, it shows MGD per month, that sort of information. A big part here for me was to also have a quick snapshot of their efforts of what they're looking at doing, bringing on wells, the effluent, and how and when that impacts those numbers. So I didn't see that on here today.
So, correct, and I think that goes to the point Councilman Hernandez made as well. So I've got to get updated information, like on the, let's use the reuse program for Valero. I need an update on their improved timeline so that I can add that into my memo.
So
currently, my memo has their original estimates.
Peter, I understand we're looking at the effluent, but I've been requesting this since February.
This is the water brought in by industry, right, to supplement?
I'm talking about all of our customers,
above,
large volume,
right.
everybody. I'm not picking on industry. I like our industry. But the reason I continue to say we have to know that is because it impacts our dashboard.
You're right.
It's been a
it does.
long time asking
Yeah.
for this.
I know, so part of the issue is there is some hesitancy for entities to give that to us. We've asked them.
Correct. We've
won't-
asked our wholesale customers
Yeah.
and our large volume users. They are working at various stages of their projects, and it's not confirmed yet, so they're, like the city manager said, they're hesitant to give us firm dates.
Firm numbers of dates
Yeah.
and amounts.
Yeah.
But we are working with the cities like of Alice, Beeville, Mathis to see what relief does that have on use and the existing sources. So we're hearing you, and we ask for it just about every time we meet with the industry, but.
You know, I think that they're good partners, and I hope that
Yeah.
they're helpful. Yeah, I hope that they come and communicate on the 28th, because that's an important meeting. But I think one of the things you presented here was a recommendation on how we set those baselines.
Yeah.
And I think that's us looking at how we be good partners. So I'd really love to see what is that total net going to be when these other things come online. So I appreciate it. I know I'm out of
Yeah.
time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. So, Nick, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I certainly appreciate what you showed today it's truly reality. I mean, y'all have made changes, and that's appreciated, because we need, as Nick and I talked about yesterday in the briefing, there are certain things that are icing on the cake that need to be kept aside and not included necessarily. The people are interested in what is real today. What is our water situation? And that's what y'all did today.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of changes from what we have been saying, or you all have been saying, to the public. So thank you for that. I think rain barrels, things like that are very important. But first and foremost, I mean, we need a whole lot of rain in order to take advantage of those rain barrels. Those meters, and I mean, they're a good thing.
Yeah.
But what people need to know is where do they sit? I have such a great concern about people not knowing where their water usage is.
Yeah, we do.
And not having to pay for it. And to the councilmen's, whether it's foster children or children coming home from college or whatever have you, the usages, the variation in that, it's extremely important. We cannot have residents get hit with a $500 violation and a second conviction, and then, service being shut off. That's just that cannot happen. So we have to find a buffer, a program that is strong in education, strong in letting people know we're starting a voluntary program right now. We have to start training people to get to that 50, 200, or what have you. So anyhow, that said, y'all have a lot of great points that the council have brought forth. I know everybody's writing notes, so we look forward to those changes. Thank you, Peter, staff, and with that, there being no further business, this
Mayor,
meeting.
can I just a couple council members said, let's not bring everything back for vote next Tuesday.
Right.
So I think we can bring some material back, like the percentage, the curtailment percentage of 25%. We didn't hear any opposition, so we'll bring that just so the businesses and residents will know, and wholesalers. So we'll look at what we can bring just so we can do this, a little at a time maybe, and then maybe on the 5th of May, we'll bring back.
Right, well, it'll be between the 28th and the 5th that you
Right.
come back with all of it
And if it
exclusively.
takes longer than the 5th, that's fine. I think the community
That's
just needs predictability, and
Right.
just hearing the workshop today
Okay.
helps us get there. So we'll bring some material next week, and then more on the 5th, and
On
if
the
we
5th.
have to, the meeting
Okay.
after that.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
This meeting is now adjourned.